Okay, so everybody's happy. Who's going to grow more wheat this fall than they did last year? Plant more wheat this fall than they did a year ago? Not one stinking hand. Now tell me what the problem with this is. We have a record wheat crop and you're not planting more. Why are you not planting more? Not worth anything. Jesus. How many bushels did you get? Yeah. Oh, I don't know. Hey, Sean, the next time we have this, you got to have a hydro pole beside me so I can hit my head. Jeez. So yeah, I will give you that the price is in the sewer. Is the price good for corn? No. And actually, the price in relative terms for corn right now is better than it is for wheat. Why? Because we've switched to an import basis on corn, right? They figure we're going to have to bring corn into Ontario, where normally we ship corn out of Ontario. So the corn basis right now is 50 cents a bushel higher than what it normally is, or 25 cents at least, but somewhere in that range, because that's kind of that import-export basis. And corn and wheat are about the same price. Yeah. You had lots of opportunity to sell that wheat crop at $6. If you didn't, join me. I'm a crappy marketer. But we had the opportunity. And the other thing that just drives me nuts is you keep forgetting about the value that the wheat crop brings. So how many guys planted oats after their wheat crop this year? Why'd you do that?
The wheat wasn't good enough.
The wheat wasn't good enough. Yumping you, him and he's Chris. Yeah, there's always got to be peanut gallery. No, so I mean, it's another hedge against a drought, or against a whole lot of rain where your alfalfa gets spoiled and you need the hay. You can plant oats or oats and peas after that wheat crop. It's emergency forage. It's not the cheapest emergency forage in the world, but it gives you another opportunity. So you're not going to plant more wheat. So tell me, like, you're not going to plant more wheat because it's worth nothing, right? That's the whole thought process. What's 2017 wheat worth today? If you were to sell it today, make a forward contract, what could you get?
175 a ton.
175 a ton. What can you get for corn? So there's a 50 cent a bushel difference right now where I market my corn and wheat for 2017. So that's 20 bucks a ton, right? Give or take. It's 20 bucks a ton. It's almost $5 wheat, and everybody is looking at this year's wheat crop at $4.30 when you could have sold it for $6, and you know, if you'd have sold it at harvest, you could have sold it for $4.75 or $4.90 if you and actually over $5 if you hit it just right. But you all thought it was going to keep going up, so you all hung on to it, and so nobody sells, right? It's greed and fear. Greed and fear is always what you're worried about. So just because I really want to change this mindset a little bit. You're going to grow wheat. What does that do for your corn yield? Yep, very good. So the average actually with you grow wheat, your corn yield is going to go up by somewhere between 6 to 8 bushels per acre. Okay? Now I know corn's not worth very much, but if you use 7 bushels at $4.30 a bushel, that's about 30 bucks an acre, give or take. What's it going to do to your soybean yield?
About a bushel.
About a bushel. No. My name is not Horst Bonner. So it's not about a bushel. It's the one time where Horst could actually, if he would only be smart enough to get you to grow wheat, where he could actually get more than a bushel. 2 or 3? No, actually, believe it or not, and this is what astounds me. This number is a little bit up and down. Our corn yield response a little bit up and down. Man, oh man, on soys, when we look at the data, it's 5.5 bushels per acre. Consistently, doesn't matter what site I go to, Elora, Ridgetown, Delhi, Woodsley, 5.5 bushels per acre. So when you do that wheat mathematics, that's worth about 60 bucks, that's worth 90 bucks. So you take almost $100 per acre out of your corn and soybeans and add it to your wheat economics, and it changes your economics. So you can grow no wheat if you'd like, but it's the wrong decision. So, by the way, what's the corn after corn look like this year? Crap! Thank you very much. Finally a good answer. I like it. Why does it look like crap? You know, if there's anything that wheat really does for you, is it improves your soil health and it improves your resiliency. So as soon as we put wheat in the rotation, and I don't care, you take the straw off and you don't grow a cover crop, you do everything wrong, you put wheat in the rotation, your organic matter level goes up. And you would say, well, how can that be? If I grow continuous corn, I put all this residue back. Yeah, you do. But guess what? You're not diversifying. The bugs get to be able to break that corn residue down, and your organic matter levels don't go up. The only thing worse than continuous corn is continuous soybeans, and soybeans are a terrible crop right out the gate. Just forget them, don't grow them, and life will be happier, right? So you really do get a lot of benefit in terms of soil health. And when you know, Todd talked a little bit about some really good corn. There's really good corn out there. Almost always this year it's on well-rotated ground, just right out the gate. So it does a lot of good things. So you're happy with this year's wheat yield. Tell me what you did right. Why did you get huge yields this year that you didn't get last year? Planted early. Okay, planted early, right. What's too early, Dave?
Yesterday.
Well, actually,
August.
yeah, today is still too early, but tomorrow is not.
Tomorrow's fine.
Okay. Yeah, 4 hours, exactly.
Midnight tonight.
Midnight tonight, giver. So you guys all laugh, but we are going to start planting wheat plots tomorrow. Shane's geared up. We're going to go down into the Niagara Peninsula, and we are going to plant wheat. They did get moisture. It's on soybeans that got released. Crop insurance said they're not worth harvesting. So we get to plant wheat plots tomorrow. That'll be a first for me to actually get it on September the 1st. It'll be a little bit of fun. But that is, when I go back over the history of trying to get high wheat yields, because, man, we have to be able to repeat 2016 wheat yields on a regular basis. Because already you tell me that it doesn't make sense. Well, if I could consistently grow 110, 120, 130 bushel wheat, then I've got a lot better chance at making it economic. By the way, what's the highest wheat yield we got this year in Ontario? Field basis, not a plot, not a strip. Anybody? I told somebody here already tonight. 166 bushels per acre on 83 acres. Down the pit, field is measured. That's an accurate weight, like an accurate yield. It's the yield monitor, by the way, in that field consistently in most of the field was sitting around 190, 195. Once in a while would bump over 200, then you'd go into the poor areas along the bush or over the knoll and she'd drop back to maybe 130. But a lot of that field, it was hanging right nice at 195, and you just say, wow. His corn might not yield that because that particular yields further north where there are 200 bushel corn is pretty unlikely. But so we have to get there, and we have to get there on a more consistent basis if we're going to keep wheat in the rotation. So how do we do that, right? That's kind of the thought process you go through. If we're going to make wheat work, how do we repeat 2016? And when I go back over the high yield years, so you look back in the crop insurance database or whatever database you like and you say, okay, so 2006 was a high yield year. Why was that? Well, in the fall of 2005, we planted early. 2008 was a high yield year. Why was that? In the fall of 2007, we planted early. And when you go back and you look at that, every year we planted early, we get high yields. And in the fall of 15, 80% or more of the wheat was planted in September. And so, you know, Dave, you said tomorrow isn't too early, and everybody sort of laughed. Yeah, we're at Drayton. You're not in the warmest spot in Ontario. It's not the coldest spot, but it's not the warmest spot. Yeah, the coldest spot is not far from here. Well, I don't know. The guys at New Liskeard might take exception, but yeah, you're right. Dundalk is not really that far away. So I don't know. What's your optimum date? What do you think your optimum date to plant wheat is? 15th, 20th. So I'll tell you right now, at London, it's somewhere between the 20th and the 25th of September. Now what do you think the optimum date is here? So you're looking at September 10th to September the 15th. That's sort of your optimum date. So let's get it in early, and the 10th to the 15th if we can. What else? What else is really important?
A mild winter. You can't give that to us every year, Johnson.
Yeah, you're absolutely right, Johnson. But I will agree that Mother Nature smiled. Although she smiled up until about the 10th of May when it quit raining. And then some people got a rain on the, I don't know, what was it, the 2nd of June or something in there. We got a rain that really made the wheat crop. But if we'd have had another inch of rain on the 20th of June or the 15th of June, like it had been unbelievable. The guys at Sarnia, and at Sarnia when I talked about rainfall problems, they all thought I was talking about too much moisture, not too little, because they were catching 4-inch rains and 3-inch rains, and it was wet, wet, wet. The guys at Sarnia this year, a particular grower grew winter barley on 200 acres. What do you think his yield was? It's 186.3 bushels per acre. Like we could get these, if we'd have had another couple inches of rain, that 166 I mentioned would have been low because the potential was out there. So yeah, Mother Nature smiled, but you can't, you're right, I can't guarantee she'll smile again, but by gosh, if I don't set up so that I'm geared to go and get the most out of whatever weather I get thrown at me, then I'm really not doing my job, right? So what else are we going to do? What else are you going to do to try and repeat 2016 wheat yields?
Fertility.
Yeah, fertility. What in particular on fertility? Fall phosphorus, yes. Yeah, so what's really intriguing on phosphorus, and we've got a whack of data, right? But with fertility, you talk about corn, and Todd, we've seen lots of potash deficiency in corn this year, right? Yeah. Way more than you might expect. Dry year, you see that potash deficiency. Potash deficiency showing up in soybeans right now, and that's not altogether unexpected because they're high potash users. In wheat, potash barely matters. It's not that it doesn't matter, but it's not the main nutrient. With wheat, it's all about phosphorus. And so with phosphorus, and you guys are pretty lucky because most of you have lots of manure, and manure helps because it keeps your phosphorus levels up. And I know that Dan's going to talk about fertility a bit as well, but boy, when it comes to fertility and phosphorus on wheat, we've seen some massive yield increases by making sure you have good base fertility levels. So if you have a single-digit phosphorus, if you have a 6 for phosphorus, you just got to build it up. Because from our data, there's 10 bushels more wheat and 10 bushels more soybeans if you had that at a 20 for phosphorus than at a 6. And I can't replace that with seed-placed fertility. So there's both base fertility and there's also in-trench. And so even at a 20 or a 25, wheat's a funny beast. We get response even in our data set at a 55 for phosphorus, which is, we go excessive at 60. We still see 4 bushels per acre on average yield increase to some phosphorus in the trench. And it not only does a bit of a yield boost, we get more uniform heading, so we can time our fusarium fungicide better. We get better winter survival, and so we just get a better tillering, like a whole lot of cool things that go along with that fertility. What else you going to do?
And it can be pretty tacky.
Yeah. So how much of the yield was the fact that not only did Mother Nature give us a mild winter, she gave us a dry fall. not only dry seeding,
Whole dry.
but a whole dry fall, because on the heavier clays, almost every year I get tile run wheat. So I go to Lambton County, I have good wheat over the tile, crappy wheat between the tile. Never saw that at all in 2015, the fall of 2015. Because yeah, October was damp. It wasn't a combine day every day, but we never got the 4 or 5 inch rains that saturated everything and sat wet. And how much does that impact? It absolutely impacts. So you know the other thing you want to do if you want to have really good wheat? Right? Anyway, no, tile drainage. If you want to get the dry fall, then you like dry the soil up, and you pay for tile whether you have it or not. And so, you know, that's one of the things we don't really think about, but tile drainage can often make 10, 20 bushel more wheat yield. So when you say dry fall, yes, huge impact. Can I repeat it? No, but move more and more, and the tile guys are busy and continue to be busy, and that's because we're trying to do this, absolutely. What else? What else are you going to do? So you decide whether you will be a record wheat grower, a record yielding wheat grower, when? The day you buy your soybean variety. Absolutely. You cannot be a record yield soybean grower and a record yield wheat grower at the same time. Because to be a record soybean guy, you got to grow super long season. And as soon as you do that, even though you plant your beans early, if they're super long, you're not going to get there. So you decide when you order your soybeans whether you're going to grow good wheat or not. And Horst would always talk about this 4 bushels. I grow super long soybeans, I get 4 bushels more beans. At 12 bucks a bushel, that's $50 an acre. Oftentimes that pushes me out of the 20th of September into about the 5th of October for planting. I get a rain around that 5th of October. It's now the 15th of October. I give up a bushel per acre per day. So that 4 bushels of soybeans often takes me about 20 bushels of wheat, takes that out. 20 bushels of wheat, even at today's crappy prices, at $4 a bushel is 80 bucks. Do you want 80 bucks? Do you want 50 bucks? You're going to grow wheat, you grow short season soybeans, and you plant them early to make sure you can plant that wheat on time. You do both if you can. But you're right, plant your soybeans early and pick your soybean variety. What else? Spring fertility, absolutely. So nitrogen. So there's another one that you know, how many guys split their nitrogen this year? How many guys were going to and then decided not to? Oh, nobody's willing to admit it. Isn't that interesting? I like that. What's that? Oh, was there one hand and I missed it? Sorry, whoever it was, I missed your hand. My apologies. You're smiling like it might have been you. Yeah. And I went around last winter and I was worried like crazy about standability. And I was telling people to hold off on nitrogen. How many guys had problems with lodging? Not anybody, right? And yet all winter I talked about lodging. What happened that we didn't end up with a whole lot of wheat flat on the ground? No rain? Yep, that's one thing. Yeah, cool May, dry June. So actually, Tim, you're the biggest factor, and you're right, no rain is part of it for sure, but the biggest factor was cool nights. So April was the coolest April in 30 years. You get cool nights, you get thick stems. And so the way that it works, it's quite simple. The wheat plant photosynthesizes through the day and fixes sugar, makes sugar. At night, all it does is respire those sugars away. That's just the way it works. And respiration is temperature driven. So if you photosynthesize this much through the day and you get a 5-degree night, 5 degrees Celsius night, how much do you respire? Not very much. How much do you have left for growth? Quite a bit. What do you get? Nice thick stems that stand up. If you photosynthesize this much through the day and you get a 15 or perish the thought, a 20-degree night, how much do you respire? Quite a bit. Hopefully not all, Dave, or the plant goes backwards. That would be a bad thing. How much do you have left for growth? Not very much. What do you get? Really thin, spindly stems that flop over. The best growth regulator, bar none, is nitrogen. And all you guys that put 100% of your nitrogen on in one shot on April the 20th this past spring, every one of you should have had flat wheat. Mother Nature smiled on them, Jeremy, and they got away with it. Will it happen again next year? The earlier you plant, the taller the wheat will be. And that's a really, you wonder, why is that? If you plant on September the 10th, the wheat will be this tall. If you plant on October the 5th, it'll be this tall. And if you plant on November the 1st, it'll be this tall. And it's just the way the plant develops. And it doesn't make a lot of physiological sense, but the earlier you plant, the taller it gets. The taller it gets, the more lodging. So if I'm going to push you to plant early, which I have to get big yields, what does that make your wheat? More lodging prone. One of these years, you aim for the 160 bushels per acre. You plant on the 10th of September. You go out there on the 20th of April and you put on your 120 pounds of nitrogen, and we're going to get a bunch of 20-degree nights. And what are you going to have? Flat wheat. So you want to manage that? Split your nitrogen. So there's nitrogen rate. And by the way, 160 bushel wheat takes a lot of nitrogen. To grow 160 bushel wheat consistently, it will take somewhere in the range, depending on the protein level, but we need somewhere in the range of at least 160, if not 200 pounds of nitrogen to grow 160 bushel wheat. So like when you think about how much we put on corn versus how much we put on wheat, wow, that's really interesting. But not only nitrogen rate, but this timing, this split up, if we're going to do it right, we really have to start splitting that nitrogen and doing a better job of managing, or one of these days we're going to get our butts rocked. Okay, a few other things that you haven't mentioned. So, what about the combine? A good planting job starts at? Soybean harvest. Why? Residue. How many people have a chaff spreader on their combine? 3 hands. 4, thank you. So you, right out the gate, if you don't have a chaff spreader on the combine, you won't do the best possible job of planting your wheat, because you're not spreading your residue uniform. And I wanted to give you a challenge. When you combine your soybeans, you know, you guys all you're all farmers. If a little is good, a lot is better. So if a 15-foot header is good, a 45-foot header is just sexy. Can you spread residue 45 feet? Almost nobody can. So even on your 30-foot combine, do me a favor, get your leaf rake and make a pass up the field. By the way, if your chopper's not doing a good job, what should you do? Put in new knives. You know, the one thing that nobody in the crowd wants to do is read the friggin' manual. Because in the manual, it tells you how to adjust it to make it work better. How many people have actually read that section of the manual? Nobody, thank you very much. Anyway, take your leaf rake, and if the header's this wide, you start at the outside, just able to reach the edge, and pull it this way, the residue that you've spread, and reach the other way and pull it this way. Make a pile, move over, do the same thing. Move across the whole width of your combine header and look at the size of the piles. If they aren't equal, you're not doing a good job. And you know, I can't emphasize enough that if you're going to grow good wheat, you absolutely have to have that residue spread 100% uniform. If you don't, and I can't tell you how many times I drive through the countryside and I see this 5-foot strip of bare dirt. The combine couldn't spread it all the way. And then growers whine to me the next spring that they can't time their fusarium fungicide right. Well, of course you can't, because where you didn't have any residue, it grew differently, and you automatically screwed it up. So start with the combine. So combine setup, what else? Seed treatment, absolutely. If you don't treat your seed, you're not a real wheat grower, and when you get 100% yield loss from dwarf bunt or common bunt in your wheat, don't call me because I don't care. So seed treatment is an absolute must, especially for you guys because you're in the dwarf bunt area. So you have to have seed treatment, and it has to include dividend, which all of the good seed treatments for winter wheat now include dividend, full stop, right? So seed treatment for sure. What else? Seeding rate, yep, for sure, seeding rate. So seeding rate, and how are you going to determine the seeding rate? Yeah, seeds per acre for sure. And you're going to change your seeding rate based on planting date. So that's the other beauty of planting early. If you plant early, you can plant less seed because it'll tiller in the fall. And so 1 million seeds planted tomorrow will yield as much as 1.8 million seeds planted on the 1st of October. So we all whine about how much Tim wants to charge us for this wheat seed, and we don't want to buy it because we think he charges us too much. Meanwhile, we also all whine about the fact that we don't have better wheat varieties, and we can't understand why he won't bring us any, but we don't give him any money to bring us any. I think there is a problem there somewhere, I really think. But you want to have it both ways. You just plant early and you plant less seed, and at least he gets something for his breeding program, and things can work, right? It can work both ways. But this, adjust your seeding rate by your seeding date, for sure. One other thing you're missing. If I have a whole bunch of lamb's quarters in my winter wheat crop, how much has it hurt my yield? What do you think? Winter wheat now, I'm not talking about corn. If I have a bunch of lamb's quarters in my corn, it's a bad thing. It's actually a bad thing in my wheat too, but it's unusual. Regardless, if I have it, how much has it hurt my yield? Minimal. Why? Pardon?
Because your wheat-free period is more in the fall or spring.
So it's all about when the weed comes up. So the lamb's quarters comes up here at Drayton about the 5th of May. What stage is the winter wheat at by the 5th of May? It's way ahead of the lamb's quarters. So yeah, lamb's quarters, they're a pain at harvest, but yield impact is very close to zero. How much yield impact do dandelions have? Or chickweed? Or perennial sow thistle? Those are the weeds that hurt. When do you do the best job of killing those weeds? In the fall. I think there's some other things we could talk about, but I'll stop, and if there's questions, I'll answer them, and if not, we'll just carry on.
So you mentioned winter barley. When do you plant winter barley then?
So winter barley, when do you plant winter barley? Well, 10 days before you plant winter wheat, except maybe not on August 20th. It might be a little too early. But yeah, you could start planting winter barley tomorrow. You really could. And we don't get good winter survival on winter barley, mostly because we don't plant it early enough. You really want to play around, you livestock guys. Man, oh man, double crop soybeans after winter barley is a way better chance than double crop soybeans after winter wheat. So we have a guy, you're shaking your head. We have a guy in Oxford County, so just south of Stratford. Now I know that's a little warmer than here, but he's got double crop soybeans after winter barley. His winter barley ran 145 bushel to the acre, and he's got double crop soybeans that I bet will make 40 bushel to the acre. Anyway, with that, I'm out of time. Whatever you do, like this wheat thing, as much as you tell me it doesn't make you money, it really makes you long-term sustainable. And I think I see a lot of young lads here that are probably thinking they're going to be farmers someday. you want to do the very best thing for them. You got to stay in this rotation, and winter wheat is a really incredibly important part of that. So with that, thank you very much. Grow wheat.